Hi! Welcome to a new reading vlog. It hailed like crazy like an hour ago and it's still kind of raining, so maybe that provides some nice ambiance. But it was crazy. It like painted the floor white almost outside of my house. So that was kind of exciting. But I wanted to update on Macbeth first, which I failed to mention last time. I'm reading this because one of my other students is studying this in school as well currently. And so far I'm really, really liking it. I do think Shakespeare is it. I think he is still very relevant and his texts are very profound, universal, and I understand why it's still in the syllabus right now. I can I know a lot of people don't like him, but for me, I really, really resonate, especially with Hamlet. I really, really love Hamlet. So Macbeth is a tragedy. Basically, there is this king, Duncan, and Macbeth is like one of his, please correct me if I'm wrong, lords. And so initially he's kind of fighting on behalf of Duncan, but eventually he kind of has unchecked ambition that results in him kind of going on a bunch of killing sprees. I'm currently on Act 3, Scene 4. Actually, really, I say funny because I don't know what else to do in a situation like this but laugh. Macbeth and his lords are at a party, but he starts going crazy when he sees Banquo's ghost. So Banquo is like his bestie, but then he had to like cark him because he was getting too far up the authoritative kingship whatever ladder, and he had to go. And so he's I suppose this is like representative of Macbeth's guilt that he's kind of driven mad by this ghost at a party that he's hosting. His wife tries to console him and reassure the attendees that he is fine, but they all end up leaving, and Macbeth decides to see the witches after this. So this is like the something toil and trouble play. Do we open with the witches? I think we do. We open with like a bunch of witches, but they're called the Weird Sisters in this one, which I thought was a little strange. I'd never really heard of that. I know there was a band in Harry Potter called the Weird Sisters, but I just found it really interesting because if you've read Hamlet, actually it's probably like general knowledge, Hamlet is almost haunted by his father's ghost because he was killed by his brother. Lion King was actually modeled after Hamlet. But yeah, so Hamlet is haunted by his father's ghost. And the thing is, sometimes at the beginning of the play, for instance, other people can see the ghost, but in the rest of the play, no one else can. So that's a similar thing happening here, where Macbeth is able to see the ghost, but no one else in attendance is. There's a lot of beautiful, beautiful language. I really enjoy how prevalent Lady Macbeth is in this story. I feel like, and it's, typical of like medieval early English literature for women to not play a very big role in their texts, but I really enjoy how much Lady Macbeth is sort of like influencing Lord Macbeth's decisions. She's almost his rock, like she consoles him when requires, but also provides sort of like stability and strength to him when he is kind of floundering in his diabolical escapades, I suppose. Something else I'm also really enjoying is some of the extended metaphors. In particular, this kind of juxtaposition between like day and night, stars and light. So in Act 1, Scene 3, we have a quote, "So foul a fair a day I have not seen," which, is kind of like whatever on its own. But then we just keep seeing these sort of allusions to like nobility and like light and stars. So in Act 1, Scene 4, "But signs of nobleness like stars shall shine on all deservers." That was a lot of alliteration, sibilants in particular for the S sort of sounds. And then also "Stars, hide your fires, let not light see my black and deep desires." Act 1, Scene 4, so that same scene as the previous quote that I just said. And then finally Act 3, Scene 3, almost at odds with mourning, which is witch. So yeah, extended metaphor is used here to represent Macbeth's inability to reconcile his good and evil side. While he has committed murders during the play, he has also shown guilt and remorse over his actions. This scene is the catalyst to Macbeth truly becoming unhinged as the line between good and evil becomes indistinguishable. So yeah, I love just like space and like stars and celestial objects in general. So I really, really enjoy his use of lightness to connote goodness and the dark to connote evilness, which I think is a pretty universal illusion experience. So this is like the first time I was able to sit down and film a clip because I've just been studying all day. Turns out the essay that I thought was due this Saturday is actually due this Friday, and I also changed the question I wanted to answer last minute. It's also 2,000 words, but I've already written 1,000 since last night, so that's good. Before I rush to my lesson in less than 15 minutes, I just wanted to update on some books. First one I wanted to talk about was 3-Act Tragedy by, I think I called the author accidentally Hercule Poirot instead of Agatha Christie, but it's definitely Agatha Christie. Still listening to it on audiobook. I'm currently 3 hours and 54 minutes through it out of almost 6, so about 2/3 of the way through. When we left off last time, I think we were just getting introduced to all the characters and nothing much in terms of the investigation had occurred yet. But we found out that there was actually nicotine essence. I don't know, I forgot what it's called. But the second dude that died, carked it. I think it was Mr. Babington. Was it Mr. Babington? I think it was Mr. Babington. He carked it because of nicotine poisoning. And so one of the main characters, Mr. Charles, the actor, kind of takes it upon himself to investigate the deaths. And him and Mr. Satterthwaite sort of theorize that the first death in the initial dinner at the beginning of the book is connected to the second death when Mr. Babington died. So they go on a couple of investigations. They went to his wife and find out that they were pretty poorly off. They didn't have a lot of money and he didn't really have any enemies. So the motive for his death is kind of up in the air right now. But the part I just stopped listening to, Egg went to Mrs. Deacon's sort of like dress shop and found out that she might be having an affair and that she's also kind of in need of money as well. So it seems like a lot of different characters are kind of taking it upon themselves to, find out who the killer is. Poirot also just probably like 30 minutes ago, so about halfway through the book, started joining the investigation, kind of relegating Mr. Charles and Mr. Satterthwaite to interview more people. So yeah, again, really interesting. I theorize, and I have no clue why, that Charles is the killer. Don't ask me why, I just have a feeling. I am mostly very incorrect on these guesses, so who knows whether that'll be correct. There is a cat in my backyard. Meow. I see this cat all the time in the morning when I'm studying, and I realize it's because the top of my shed is like prime sunbathing real estate. Anyways, next one I wanted to update on was Les Mis. So after not very much deliberation, I did decide to start annotating the books. Currently on part 3, book 3, chapter 4, which is 729. So this much through the book. I can't believe we're already this far of the way through, although we are more than halfway through August, so that does make sense. Also, I made this bookmark. It's from one of my favorite quotes, or my most favorite quote from Wuthering Heights. Whatever souls are made of, his and mine are the same. The duck with the flaming mouth is probably quite incongruous to the theme of the book market. But so far, we're actually told now that who Thénardier and Javert were looking for was in fact, and I can't believe I forgot his name, Jean Valjean. It was him and Cosette. It's been, I think, said 4 years since we saw them last. So they previously were staying at a convent because they were escaping from Javert, because he's been kind of following them around like a loser. Can't you just leave them alone, dude? But it's been 4 years since then, and initially Jean Valjean wanted to stay there because he wanted to sort of like protect Cosette from like the wiles of man and the evils of man or whatever. But then he realized that, like, you know, it's not his decision as to whether she gets to experience those things. So they decided to leave. It was actually a beautiful line that I think encapsulated his thought process. Actually, not just a beautiful line. This entire section was absolutely wonderful. So this on page 723. He asked himself if all the happiness really did belong to him, if we were not made up of somebody else's happiness, of the happiness that he was confiscating, that he was stealing from this child. He, an old man, was in a case of theft. He told himself that this child had a right to know life before renouncing it, that cutting her off in advance and in a sense without consulting her, from all the joys of life on the pretext of sparing her from all forms, from all of its ordeals, to take advantage of her ignorance and her isolation, to plant an artificial vocation in her, was to warp and damage another human being and to lie to God. Which I think I wholeheartedly agree with. Like, the best teacher is experience, and no matter, you know, I know all parents just want the best for their child, but in the end you do have to kind of let them go off into the world and find their own way through it. Hi, it's been a couple days. In fact, it's a new week. But before I go to my class, which is in 15 minutes, just want to update on a couple of books. First, I finished off 3-Act Tragedy. She was so camp, so fun. I want to say that I got the person I thought it was correct, but I don't want to say that I didn't either. So do with that what you will. I recommend. I thought it was, I don't know, it was just so fun. It was just kind of ridiculous. And that was, and the last part, was it 3-Act Tragedy or was it Cards on the Table? No, it was 3-Act. Wait, no, I can't remember. But anyways, in that time I have also started and finished another Poirot audiobook. I read Hercule Poirot's Christmas, and that was, you know, if you like Knives Out, if you like Everybody in My Family Has Killed Someone, some family drama, some mischief, some murder, that was super quick. It was like an hour and a half, maybe not even, so I'm assuming the book was like this small. So yeah, I really enjoyed that over the weekend. To start another audiobook, I've begun the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, currently through the first one. Obviously I've never seen the movie, so I had kind of no idea what I was getting into. Turns out it's narrated by Stephen Fry, who I love, so that was super fun and fresh. So far it's really interesting. I'm not really quite sure. I'm marked it as like a comedy so far based off what I've heard, because it's kind of like ridiculous. We have this dude, I literally don't know his first name. I'm gonna say Andrew. And he just wakes up one day and doesn't realize that the government is about to bulldoze his house to build a bypass. And then this other guy, who's actually an alien, got stranded on Earth like 15 years ago. So he's been trying to pass off as a human all this time, but wants to get home now, but can't because like there have been no UFOs to like beam him up. So they kind of like meet because the first guy whose house is about to get bulldozed down, he's obviously kind of mad about that. So he's been kind of like lying in front of the ground the bulldozers are on, so they don't like knock his house down. And I think they're gonna like join together to form, I don't know, some sort of plot. It's only around 4 hours for the first audiobook, so I think we'll get through that pretty easily, since I am also listening to it on 1.5 speed, double speed, I don't know. In addition, we've also gone through a little bit more of War and Peace. I also decided to start annotating this, and things have been getting kind of spicy. I'm currently on volume 3, part 3 to 18, and there has been a character death. I should have said spoilers first, but anyways, it's been a character death. I was shook when I read it. Actually, not that shook. I was, most because I like mistook it for another person because there's so many characters that I mix them up. But there's been a character death, and also Pierre's wife. She kind of wants to marry this other guy, so she's kind of been like going around town being like, your Christianity will let me marry or be married to 2 guys at once, right? And Pierre was actually unaware of this until he hears rumors that she's like wanting to do it or whatever, and then after he finds out, he just kind of disappears. So Pierre's kind of MIA right now, and so we leave Pierre for a bit, and then we go to Natasha and the Rostovs, and the war has started to entrench upon Moscow, and so they're preparing to flee, but in the preparations they actually receive a lot of wounded men into the area, and so Natasha convinces her mom and her dad, sounds weird to call them her mom and her dad, to let the soldiers stay at the Rostov estate as before they leave. And then as they're leaving, the day that they have to evacuate, turns out Andre was actually one of the wounded people there, but they just didn't know. It was just like on a cart in like their backyard or whatever. And also, as they're preparing to leave, they see like Pierre outside the window, and then Natasha's like, wait, that's Pierre, bro, like I haven't seen him in yonks. And so Pierre goes up to them. He's kind of like frazzled because I think he knows about Andre, but again, Sonia and her mom know, but they didn't tell Natasha because I guess they didn't want to hurt her feelings. So Natasha's kind of the only one here that doesn't know that Andre is there and that he's really hurt. He actually seems like he's about to die, or it looks like he's about to die. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen, because he's kind of like one of my favorite characters. And I think I don't know, these last few chapters have been kind of strange because Natasha's been sort of like in this really happy, like joyful mood despite having to evacuate her house, seeing all these wounded soldiers, and obviously she doesn't know that like Andre is here. But yeah, it's just been kind of, again, another contrast between like the events happening within the text and then characters' reaction to it. So yeah, really enjoying that so far. It's second last day of August, and there is so many books on my TBR that I am definitely not going to finish this month, but that's all right, we'll just finish them next time. I also just wanted to jump back on and say happy birthday to the one and only Miss Mary Shelley. Frankenstein is enduring, it's relevant, and she is that girl. Also want to say happy book week with a couple of photos of my little brother, who I love very much, who dressed as Harry Potter even though he's read none of the books, and I was actually the only kid in my family who reads any books, but my parents never actually celebrated that with me, but he looks really cute. I also tied a tie for the first time today by myself from a YouTube tutorial and did it perfectly, as you can see here. So yeah. Oh my god, I forgot her name. Pierre's wife. The part 3, book 3. Dude, how are these organized? Oh my god, is it Maria? So that might be the reference to like witches or whatever. Yellow has nice purrs again. I don't know. I'm gonna have to come back to you on that. Cards on, no, that's what I was reading. Okay, yeah, chapter, god, I hate Roman numerals, 18, XV, I, yeah, anyways, I know I'm really happy about the Bankstown airport being built right next to my house.